should be up and running here. Both streams, yep, should be live. All right, we got about 5 minutes until the close, about 4.5. We'll be focusing on the gap bearish strategy. We got some good ones, a decent one, and a not so good one to compare here. So we'll take a look at those, talk about what sets them apart, and prepare for tomorrow's market. Let's go ahead and get started. Good afternoon. This is Ifan from the Strategic Day Trader, and this is your market wrap for October 27th, 2021. Qs up about 0.29, started to pull back here from the highs. We came into today. If the Qs take out yesterday's low, we'll be neutral. And if the SPY takes out yesterday's low, same thing, which the SPY did. And now we're starting to show follow through after taking out that low. So SPY, you can see down 0.41, relative weakness to the Qs. Okay, IWM down 1.8. We were already neutral on this because, like we pointed out, this had already tried to bounce off the 20 MA and failed. So now for the IWM, actually, on the next sell setup, we can start a short-term bearish bias on the IWM. And same goes for the SPY. Okay. Qs are the one that's going to still be neutral, probably. And then once we take out the lows, we'll have to see what kind of follow through. It's going to be quite a drop for it to go from the high all the way through the low. So I wouldn't be surprised if we maybe take out yesterday's low and then pause for a bit first. So we don't have the bearish bias on the Q SPY or IWM yet. Okay, so we're going to have to wait for that sell setup. But we are going to be neutral again going into tomorrow. Okay. So as soon as the SPY, the low got taken out, we were neutral on the SPY, no longer bullish, which we have been for the last couple of weeks, right? And then IWM, we already knew that lost the hourly uptrend. Okay, and now the hourly is trying to go into a downtrend. So we'll wait and see what that bounce looks like, what kind of sell setup we're going to get. Or we could get just a base here, bases, and then it breaks down. Okay, that's what we'll be watching for. All right. So I wanted to go over these because we're starting to get a lot more of these. And like I mentioned before, I haven't been playing them as much as I would like, but I am starting to see them show up quite a bit. And they are working really well. And the management on these is also often a lot easier. So that's why I wanted to look at them. Okay, so we got a really good one, a decent one, and then a not so good one. Okay, so let's start with the one that I think is ideal for what we're looking for. Okay, and that was the QSR. Okay, QSR, all right, tried to gap up. Now we already went over this one on Monday, so you may recall this one. Okay, QSR gapped up and then broke through this support. Okay, so on the gap up, in the case of the berries, I want to see them break a decent amount of resistance. So if this had gapped up even a little bit more, still would have been fine. I think this is like the right amount. It's enough to like challenge this resistance. Even if it broke it by a little bit, that'd be fine. And then once it gets through support, we're going to go look for an entry. Okay. And we also want the larger time frames to be in alignment with the direction that we're playing. So notice how the weekly is in a downtrend, rolling over. So that I like as well. And then to go from one side of the 20 MA is nice because we don't want to be playing something that on the larger time frames is in an extended move. Okay, so if it's breaking a base, that's great, right? So the four things: we want the gap up to break resistance, we want the move down to break support, we want the larger time frame, the weekly, to be in agreement with the move that it's making. And then we want to go from one side of the 20 MA to the other. Okay. Now let's take a look at one that is good, solid. Okay. And that was today, this VLDR. Okay. Now, what do we see here? The gap up. Now the gap up, you can see, isn't really doing much to break resistance. Okay. Because it's really still inside of yesterday's range. We're going to get the closing bell here in just a second. So yeah, it looks like Qs and SPY are going to close here at the lows. Okay, so we didn't really get that. Okay, but we did on the sell-off at least break this pivot. So we broke some support. We do have a little bit more below. Okay, so I would say doesn't quite break resistance, but does break support. We do go from one side of the 20 MA to the other. And would you say this weekly is in a downtrend? That's a downtrend if I ever saw one, right? Clear downtrend, 20 MA pointing down. So that's really nice. Okay, so pretty solid on the VLDR. This one, more of a breakdown entry. I wish I'd seen it earlier. This one I just didn't see in time and then was already gone. Probably could have played, with this breakdown here, but I felt like it was a little bit late. The QSR gave a sell setup. Okay, the QSR was a sell setup, a retracement, and then the breakdown from there, kind of a secondary entry. Now, let's take a look at the BSX. BSX, gap up, did break some resistance, that pivot there. Okay, so that's good. Okay, but selling off here breaks some support, but definitely some immediate support in the way. Okay, right below. All right, so one thing good about it, does break resistance. Support, not so much. Okay, doesn't go from one side of the 20 MA to the other. And what that means, I think, in this scenario is that this already had a nice move up. It's been extended. People who miss their chance to get it are going to look at this as a chance to get this at some support. Okay, and the next thing, which this is definitely lacking, is that it's not in the direction of the weekly. What direction is the weekly going? Weekly is going up. Okay, and if you're looking for a gap bear, you want the weekly to be in a downtrend. Those are going to be the ones that give us a little bit more follow through. Okay, so let's take a look at the entry here on the BSX. And I think this probably, this still worked to some extent. Here's your sell setup. Okay, here's your sell setup. Okay, so it did come in and retest the lows. Okay, but you can see that support really kind of kept this thing from going into the all-day downtrends that we see in the VLDR and then the QSR. In fact, the QSR has been in a multi-day downtrend since that happened, right? So that was a very, very powerful event. The fact that gap up got sold as hard as it did, right? And broke down on that weekly. Okay. So that's what we want to see in the bullies and berries. And those usually will give you kind of the most follow through, and I expect them to close at the lows. Okay. All right. So we do get to see here what the kind of closing price is here for the Qs. Qs, another topping tail there. And then the SPY closing at the lows. All right. And then IWM. So watching to see what kind of bounce we get. If we get a sell set up, then we can start the bearish bias. Okay. All right. Hopefully you're doing well. I know things, at least for me, have gone really, have sped up a lot. The amount of plays, the amount of things to look at, it's been a little bit overwhelming, I would say. My plan for that, if you're experiencing that as well, I'm going to hold off at the open. Now, I know I was kind of thinking that, we get into earnings season, we start to ramp things up, but things kind of just came in a huge wave, so I almost need to slow down a little bit. So at the open, I'm passing on more 1 minute high-low plays and then kind of starting with more 2 minute plays. And it'll also give me a chance to scan and find some of the additional gaps. I already told the room that's what I'm doing as well. So that's going to be my adjustment, at least until either I see, 1 minute has a lot of the best plays and we're not seeing plays through the rest of the day, which is not the case. And then there aren't as many kind of additional gaps to find. Okay, so sometimes, that's the way it is. I thought maybe we would build up into earnings season, and it's here, and it came pretty quick. So hopefully you're managing all right, doing well, and we got plenty more, I think, ahead. So we'll be back at it tomorrow. Have a good evening.